You know, for all of human history, there's been one question that looms larger than any other. What happens when we die? We've tackled it with philosophy, religion, art, you name it. But today, something's different. For the very first time, science is starting to pull back the curtain on our final moments. And it all begins with an experience that people have been reporting for centuries.
Okay, picture this. It's 1790. A naval officer named Francis Beaufort is in the water and he's sure he's drowning. In what he thinks are his last moments, his entire life flashes before his eyes. This is actually one of the very first documented accounts of what we now call a life review, that profound panoramic replay of a person's whole existence.
So what's really going on here? Is this just a trick of a terrified mind, a fantasy cooked up by a brain that's starved of oxygen? Or is something real, something biological, actually happening in those final moments? Well, that's the exact question we're diving into today. And our investigation kicks off with, believe it or not, a complete accident. A moment where, for the very first time, we got a peek into the electrical symphony of a human brain as life was ending. So get this. In 2022, doctors were monitoring an 87-year-old patient who had epilepsy. They were using an EEG, which, just measures brain waves. But then completely unexpectedly, he had a fatal cardiac arrest. The thing is, the EEG kept recording. And just like that, we had this unprecedented, absolutely astonishing window into the dying brain. So what did they see? Well, after his heart stopped, the man's brain didn't just shut down. Not at all. Instead, it produced these organized, rhythmic brain waves. The patterns were shockingly similar to what we see when we're dreaming, meditating, or trying to recall a memory. And specifically, they saw these huge surges in something called gamma oscillations. Now, gamma oscillations might sound super technical, but what's really fascinating about them is that they're not just random noise. They're the fastest brainwaves we have, and they're tied to the most complex things your brain does. We're talking conscious thought, pulling up memories, learning new things. So finding these in a dying brain, that was a massive clue. Could this be the life review finally caught on tape?
A single accidental case is fascinating, for sure, but it's not proof. To really get closer to the truth, scientists needed to look at this on a much, much larger scale. And that led to a massive study called AWARE-2.
But first, we need to get a key definition straight. When we talk about death here, we mean clinical death. That's the moment your heart stops beating and you stop breathing. For most of history, that was it. Game over, the end. But then, the invention of CPR changed everything. It proved that this moment wasn't always the final point of no return. And this is where the AWARE study comes in. This was a huge undertaking, spanning 25 hospitals in the US and the UK. Researchers would basically go into emergency rooms and attach these portable EEG sensors to the heads of patients who were in cardiac arrest, all in the hopes of capturing any signs of consciousness, even after the heart had stopped.
And what they found was, well, it was pretty stunning. In some of these patients, they detected signs of organized brain activity for a shocking amount of time after the heart had stopped. The maximum they recorded? Get this, up to 60 minutes.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the crucial detail. These gamma waves and other signs of higher mental function were only seen in patients who were actively receiving CPR. This wasn't a brain just working on its own for an hour. It was a brain being kept alive, just barely, by a lot of external help.
And this really shows you the critical difference. Without CPR, studies show the brain goes flat, it goes silent, in about 30 to 60 seconds. But with CPR, those continuous chest compressions can push just enough blood up to the brain, not enough to wake you up, but just enough to support this strange, lingering electrical activity.
So what on earth could this activity be? Well, Dr. Sam Parnia, who led the AWARE study, has a theory called disinhibition. The basic idea is that as the brain is dying, its normal regulatory systems, the ones that keep us focused and filter everything out, they start to shut down. And this could potentially unlock access to everything at once, all your deepest memories, hidden parts of your consciousness, creating a kind of hyper-aware state.
But like with any groundbreaking idea in science, it's not that simple. There's a powerful counter-argument. Not everyone is convinced these gamma waves are a sign of some final lucid experience. In fact, some scientists think it's the exact opposite.
The skeptical viewpoint, which is often called the materialist hypothesis, basically flips this whole idea on its head. It suggests that these gamma waves aren't a sign of a conscious experience happening, but that they are the cause of it. So in this view, a near-death experience isn't a glimpse into another reality, It's a powerful hallucination created by the final, chaotic, electrical fireworks of a dying brain.
And the skeptical argument really cuts to a core principle of science. Association is not causation, right? Just because you see gamma waves at the same time as something else doesn't prove they're linked. As the Aware of Aware blog, which critically examines this research, points out, we don't even have a clear association here, let alone proof that one causes the other.
So let's break down the case for skepticism. First, while gamma waves are linked to consciousness, it's just a correlation. It's not proven. Second, and this is really interesting, studies on psychedelics like DMT, which can create very similar experiences, sometimes show a decrease in gamma activity. Third, some critics argue the signals could be gamma garbage, basically electrical noise from all the chest compressions or muscle twitches, not genuine brain signals. And finally, it might just be a primitive fight or flight response as the brain desperately tries to reboot itself.
But this is the single biggest point for the skeptics. For all the patients in that AWARE-2 study who showed these incredible gamma wave surges and actually survived, not one of them later reported having a near-death experience. The biological data and the personal reports, they just don't match up. So where does that leave us? We've got this amazing biological signal, but no reported experience to go with it. What does it all mean? Well, regardless of which theory turns out to be right, this research is forcing us to completely rethink one of life's most fundamental definitions. The biggest takeaway from all of this is pretty clear. Death is not an on-off switch. It's not a single moment in time. The evidence is strongly suggesting that death is a process, one that can unfold over minutes, or in some cases with medical help, maybe even an hour. I mean, just look at how our understanding has evolved. Historically, death was simple. Your heart stopped. That's it. Then, in the 20th century, we came up with clinical death to account for the fact that CPR could sometimes bring people back. And today, we're realizing it's a complex biological process where the brain might be one of the very last things to fade away.
And this raises some huge practical and ethical questions for medicine. If the brain can show signs of complex activity for up to an hour, how long should doctors continue CPR? When is the right moment to officially declare someone dead? And how does this affect really sensitive procedures, like organ donation, which absolutely rely on a clear definition of death?
Ultimately, what this research has done is open a small window into what was once a complete mystery, a total black box. The view through that window is still incredibly blurry, and the debate is far from over. But it has revealed one thing for certain. The dying brain is not silent. It's active, it's organized, and it seems to be fighting right until the very end.
Which leaves us with a final and pretty profound question. If death isn't a moment, but a process that unfolds over time, where exactly in that process does life truly end? Science may never be able to fully answer that, but it has definitely shown us that the boundary is far more complex and far more mysterious than we ever imagined.